This is Trevor Benko.
And this is Ben Jordan.
We're with TGB Supplements. Today we're going to do a video talking about the best anti-estrogen, different types of anti-estrogens, what they can be used for, and the best way to use them for your advantage. So starting off, you have SERMs, which are selective estrogen receptor modulators, and then you have your aromatase inhibitors. There's two types of aromatase inhibitors. You have your type 1, which is a steroidal suicidal inhibitors, and then there's a type 2, which are non-steroidal, non-suicidal inhibitors, which just block the aromatase enzyme. So starting off, we're going to get into the type 1, which are the suicidal inhibitors, which in my opinion are the best ones out there if they're used correctly. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, the most potent out of the suicidals is going to be exemestane or aromasin. That's probably the most potent. Plus you get the IGF-1 increase out of it as well. With the suicidals, you get some anabolic effect. Formistane's another really common one, all you guys that used Formaron back in the day. 6-OXO, which was brought to the market by Patrick Arnold. 6-Bromo, that's another really good one that can help control prolactin. And ATD, which has a little bit of an infamous quality of being an anti-androgen.
It has a little bit of an anti-androgen effect. Formistane is a little less effective at reducing estrogen or aromatase as compared to exemestane. I believe the study that I saw, it was like 91% of the aromatase, and the exemestane was at like a 97%, which was like 1% higher than Arimidex, 1% lower than Letrozole. So it's kind of right in the middle. Exemestane's probably the most, I'd say the most effective in my opinion, as far as giving you good results without a lot of negative side effects.
Right, and the suicidals, they don't crush your cholesterol or lipid as bad as something like the Remodex or the Letrozole.
And not quite as hard on the HDL, which is your good cholesterol. They also raise IGF-1, which is a potent muscle building compound and can be very beneficial. And I believe formistane and exemestane both are somewhere around 26 to 28% increase in IGF-1, which is now these numbers I'm just getting from a study that I had read. I believe it was in a muscular development way back in the early 2000s.
Plus, it's a lot easier to keep your estrogen in check. Say you miss a dose or what have you, say you're on a trip and you forget your stuff. They'll slowly allow estrogen to taper back up versus something, say, like Arimidex. You'll have a sharp rebound if you miss that half-life.
Yeah, or if you're coming off a cycle, and you were on cycle, say you're using Arimidex, when you come off, you're going to have a big-time drop, which will cause a rebound, and it's going to make it hard to recover. There's a way that using aromatase inhibitors, they can boost your testosterone, your natural testosterone output, on a pathway called the negative feedback loop. And the way that this works is by lowering your estrogen lower than normal, it makes your body think that your testosterone is low, because that's how it makes estrogen. So when it recognizes that your body's low in estrogen, it tries to produce more testosterone so it can make more estrogen. And by blocking the aromatase enzyme, you're preventing it from aromatizing that into estrogen, so it allows your testosterone to increase a little higher than normal. This is a very important part of a good post-cycle therapy, in my opinion, along with stimulating luteinizing hormone. Another thing I really like about the type 1 suicide inhibitors, aromatase inhibitors, is that they are actually androgens as well. They have a little bit of an anabolic effect. For example, formistane converts to 4-hydroxytestosterone, which is almost like a very mild anabolic. Some have even compared it to like a primobolan, very high dose, obviously, of formistane. Formistane actually was in an injectable form at one time. What was the name of it?
Lentheron.
Lentheron. And they used to dose it, I believe it was like 200 or 250 milligrams, 1 to 2 injections per week, every 4 to 7 days, and it was very effective in that way. But yeah, they would compare it to like a mild dose of primobolan, and it actually had some anabolic effects. I really like formistane. Blackline Research, we used to carry a product of theirs called Formaron. We were the first company to carry it, and we actually did very well with that product. I was one of the original testers. I really enjoyed it. It worked well for me, even with testosterone, even on a cycle. Now, granted, I never run testosterone very, very high, so typically never go over 400 milligrams. I'm normally on a replacement dose, but for me it worked great. I've had blood work done many times. It worked very well, and that's transdermally. I really do like Aromatase.
Yeah, myself with the former on, I used it for probably 3 years straight. Never had no problems as well with estrogen. Probably my favorite as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy to use and seemed to work very well.
I like the little rush you got from it.
Yeah, you do get a little bit of a head rush right when you put it on. You could feel it working. Exemestane is probably my favorite now. That's my go-to. I typically like to use that. I dose it at 12.5 milligrams every other day, and that's usually plenty for me. Depending on what you're doing and your body, you may need more or less.
That's why you always get your blood work, guys. You got to see there's really no set in stone dosage for anybody, because like Trevor's saying, everybody produces certain enzymes. I might be very sensitive to estrogen. There might be a guy, he could get away with running 200 milligrams a week of testosterone for replacement, not really need much of an anti-estrogen. It's not probable, but it's possible. So always get your blood work done to have everything dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, typically aromatase inhibitors, the primary action is to block the fat enzyme aromatase. So, by preventing that aromatase, it prevents the conversion of your testosterone to estrogen to a certain extent. In females, it's much more effective than it is in males. Not really sure why that is. I don't know if they understand what the differences are.
I wonder if it could be because females contain more body mass index of fat than males.
It's definitely a
That's
possibility.
possible. I just thought about that.
And also, it could be the fact that they have such a lower testosterone level compared to men,
right.
Which is probably more likely, I would believe.
Mm-hmm.
Less chance of conversion, so it's going to be more effective.
Right.
You're going to have less, you're going to have less testosterone, so
yep.
To convert. But yeah, I mean, that's this primary effect. Now, the more fat cells you have, the more estrogen you could have because of this, or more aromatase, which is the enzyme that converts the test to estrogen. So, getting into a little bit more detail, some of the older ones like the 6-oxo, Patrick Arnold had developed that back in the day. It was supposed to be a natural suicidal inhibitor, and it was effective as well. Typically, it was dosed between 300 and 600 milligrams orally, and guys would run that, anywhere from I'd say 6 to 8 weeks was the normal back then when it was on the market.
Yeah, the Gaspari Remodex XT was famous for that one as well. A lot of guys like that product.
Now 6-bromo, it was a little bit different. It has two components to it. The first component, I believe the alpha version that it breaks down to, is actually it prevents the testosterone from being bound to other sex hormone binding globulin, as well as other things like being converted to DHT, where the second part, the beta version of 6-bromo, actually was the aromatase inhibitor, and it was a suicidal inhibitor, so it was pretty potent as well. This was around back when the pro hormones were big. I remember seeing this supplement. It never really picked up too much. It was pretty expensive. I used it one time. It was okay. It worked okay for me. But you also had to watch, it could affect your sex drive negatively, just like any suicidal inhibitor or any aromatase inhibitor. If your estrogen gets too low, it will hurt your sex drive. So that's something to look out for as well. Let's see. I guess that pretty much covers the type 1.
Yeah, next we'll go into the selective.
2. Yeah, which is
inhibitors, like your Remodex, your Letrozole.
Cytodrin was one of those.
Mm-hmm. That was one of the original, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was one of the ones back in the 90s.
Wasn't it toxic?
I believe there was.
There was something with Cytodrin.
Well, it actually was very, very effective at lowering the estrogen. I believe almost too much, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they were saying that it would actually take the estrogen down too low.
Right.
And I think another thing to look out for is they can actually have a negative impact on your thyroid or your thyroid stimulating hormone. I know that's a negative effect of exemestane, so it could actually lower your thyroid output.
Yeah, with the Cytodrin, I think guys, they call me to use like 125 to 250 milligrams every other day.
Yeah, that one, guys didn't take that for too long. I mean, it was one of the first ones out there, and quickly it was replaced. Yeah, that one wasn't too big.
I'm almost positive there was some kind of issue with toxicity with Cytodrin.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing that as well. All right, the big one is probably Remodex and Anastrozole. This is typically what physicians prescribe now. That's one of the main, I'd say the main prescription for
Yep.
TRT, and doses range anywhere from quarter of a milligram or 250 micrograms to 1 milligram per day. 1 milligram is usually pretty high for most people. I usually take 0.25 milligrams or 250 micrograms daily, or I'll take 500 micrograms every other day when I use Arimidex. Now, it is going to be a little harder on your HDL. It will kill your cholesterol, your good cholesterol. You got to be aware of that. And I don't know, I don't feel quite as good on that as I do on Exemestane. So
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like any of the suicidals just.
I think it's the androgenic properties that they
Yeah.
have. Yeah. So I mean, overall, I tend to lean towards the suicidal inhibitors.
Yeah, and you got something like Letrozole, which can damn near annihilate your estrogen. So that's another one you'd have to be really cautious with dial into.
Yeah. Some guys are, they're fans of that. I think
Greg Valentino, isn't he a big fan of Letrozole?
I'm not sure, but I know that if you had gynecomastia, maybe that would be something to try to really crush the estrogen, try to reduce your gynecomastia. But other than that, I mean, I wouldn't use it. It's not something that I typically would use. Remember Teslac? That was another one from back in the 90s.
Yeah.
It was one of the first generation steroidal aromatase inhibitors.
Yeah, I think they took that at a maximum of 250 mgs a day.
Yeah, it permanently attached to the enzyme, the
Yeah.
aromatase enzyme.
It just wasn't as strong as the newer generations.
Yeah.
But like we were saying, that's one of the originals.
It's about, I think, a 50% reduction, they would say. Let's see, what else we got on the type 2s? We went over Letrozole.
We got Remodex. We got Teslac. I think that's it, isn't
Pretty
it?
much covers the main.
No, there's some newer generation. Isn't there newer generation ones?
Third generation, right?
Yeah. The Vorazole, it's an imidazole-based competitive inhibitor. It's something like Arimidex. They was testing it a little bit, but it got withdrawn when there was no detected duration compared to like a progestational agent, megastrol acetate. So instead, they focused on others like the anastrozole, letrozole, or exemestane.
Yeah. Yeah, which are your more common products out there that you hear about now. Okay, so going into the next anti-estrogen, I would say we're going to get into the SERMs, the selective estrogen receptor modulators. There's some changes in variety there. You got your Clomid, your Novadex. What else we got?
The Femara,
Femara,
raloxifene.
the Vista. Those are some of the big names out there now, but tamoxifen, Novadex, and Clomid are probably your big two. And those are typically used. Some of the old school guys use that over an aromatase inhibitor because it's easier on the cholesterol and it doesn't actually lower your estrogen, it blocks the receptors.
Something like Novadex, though, there's a decrease in IGF, so that might not
Exactly.
be very beneficial if you're trying to bulk. So
And it's also something you don't want to run with 19 NORs. It can have a negative effect there as well.
yeah, doesn't it cause an upregulation in the sensitivity to prolactin?
Yes. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Also, I don't know, I'm just not a big fan myself. Tamoxifen actually has a little bit of liver toxicity. Guys don't realize that. It can be hard on your liver over time, and depending on how you use it, especially with the decrease in IGF-1, it's just not something that I'm a big fan of. But I remember when we did that interview with John Meadows
Right.
on the Anabolic Cartel podcast, that's what he said he used. So everybody to each their own, I guess. You got to kind of see what works for you. Now, Clomid I've used for PCT, and it was very effective. It's a fertility drug. It can restore spermagenesis and get your fertility back. It also can boost luteinizing hormone. Now, I did notice some side effects with Clomid, blurry vision. I'd see spots, moodiness. Kind of just emotional. It definitely made me a little bit more emotional. What about you, Novadex or anything like that?
Yeah, I've used Novadex before. I had a flare-up one time. I was noticing like around the time that I would change chest, I'd start to get like an itchy sensitivity, and it knocked it away. It was like a week or two. I don't really have too much experience with it.
Yeah, I've used it a time or two as well, but mainly for PCT. Never really used it just solely for the anti-estrogen effects. I pretty much covers everything that we wanted to hit today.
Now there is a new generation. They're called SERDs. They're selective estrogen receptor degraders, and I believe Faslodex is that one. I don't know if that would be a good thing that it's degrading your estrogen receptors.
It's like a down regulator.
Yeah, because you do need estrogen.
You definitely need your estrogen. I mean, it could hurt your gains actually. If your estrogen is low, it can make your joints hurt, stiffness in the joints. I mean, long term, it could cause a lot of negative side effects.
Yeah, this isn't something that's been used
Bone
commonly
loss.
or had a whole lot of research looked into. I mean, it's possible it could work very well, but if it degrades the receptor, how long is it going to be degraded? Is it going to be permanent? Is it going to take it to a point that's too low to where you do have those side effects? Then there's nothing you can do about it.
I believe they're looking for the same type of thing with the androgen receptor. They're called SARDs, which are actually, they're going to be selective androgen receptor degraders as well. So that's kind of, they were using the SERDs to kind of find the equal parallel.
I wonder if that'd be for like DHT like type stuff, like
Probably.
prostate, hair loss.
But once again, I mean, that's not something I would ever want to use.
No.
I mean, so you never know.
Let them test that on somebody else.
Yeah, that's not something I'd be interested in trying out. That pretty much wraps everything up. I mean, I think I've touched on everything pretty well. A lot of different stuff out there. Best thing we could tell you is monitor your cholesterol. Keep an eye out for side effects. Remember, low estrogen could cause bone loss, joint pain, joint stiffness, loss in sex drive.
Yep. Low mood.
Yeah, it can make you depressed.
Yep.
You don't want that. So keep an eye on your estradiol, get your estrogen checked, and try to find what dose works best for you.
And that's the thing, is you're going to have a little trial and error to see which ones you like best, that you feel best on. It might be Remodex, it might be Letrozole, it might be Arimidex. There really is no perfect aromatase inhibitor or SERM for everybody.
And they're really being studied yet. You know, they're so new. It's not. There's still people that don't think they should be used at all. So I mean, you know, they're typically used for breast cancer. That's where most of the research has been done, unfortunately, because you know it is now something that guys are using for testosterone replacement. But there really aren't that many studies with men, healthy men. So you got to kind of do your own research there and just keep an eye on the blood work. That's the best thing we can say. To each their own, pretty much. But it gives you an idea. You could check some of these out, research them, learn a little bit more for yourself, and then, like we said, get some blood work done on a stable dose so you know what it does to you.
Yeah, like we were saying, a lot more user-friendly comes from the suicidals, like an Arimidex. Odds are you're probably going to like that best out of all of them, just for the stability of the bloodstream. Plus, like we said, it acts like an androgen as well. So I'd give those a shot probably first. That should be enough to take care of it if you're looking for an aromatase inhibitor.
Alright guys, that wraps it up. We got more videos coming. Hope you guys will subscribe. Check out the Anabolic Cartel podcast. Episode 6 is releasing soon. You can email us if you want to ask us some questions, or just post in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and we got more things to come, so take care.